backlash for reparation. It's okay. She seems peaceful. My name is Erin Gilbert, Doctor of Particle Physics at...
Hey guys, welcome back to Film Feud. I'm your host, Andrew Ramirez.
Marcus Nartatez.
And we're here to review the latest blockbuster from Sony and from Sony Studios. It's the remake of the 1984 comedy classic Ghostbusters.
What were you doing in '84?
Just swimming around.
I was one.
Yeah, I was not around, but I have seen the original movie and I didn't like it as much as most people. But we're here to talk about the movie that just came out, directed by Paul Feig. Now, this movie has definitely been the topic of a lot of controversy ever since the marketing campaign started. And I can't really blame people for thinking it looked bad because, in all honesty, the marketing campaign wasn't the greatest I've ever seen.
Not at all.
Especially for a big budget blockbuster like this. But now that we've seen the movie, we can judge it as a whole. And I think the whole point of a comedy is to make you laugh. And just like in Mike and Dave, this movie did make me laugh.
Let me just turn this down a little bit. A little technical difference. So you said it was a funny movie.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point. That was what it set out to do, and a few times, throughout it did, tickle my fancy.
Tickle
what
your
about
fancy.
you?
What are you, 80?
Yeah.
I always think it's a huge. Not only just making a remake, but making a remake of a classic in the magnitude of Ghostbusters. If you're anywhere like my age or even younger, especially older, you know Ghostbusters and more likely than not you love the movie. It's an iconic movie. It's right up there with
Goonies and Indiana Jones and all the great 80s classics.
Right up there. The main difference of this movie were the characters, and obviously, as you probably know, it's an all-female cast, where the original was a all-male cast, and I think it worked in some cases, and it didn't work in other cases. I'm really glad they didn't try to just remake the characters. They were their own. They were their own people. They didn't try to make another Egon or another. Another one of the original Ghostbusters. But in that same breath, I feel what made the original Ghostbusters really work really well was the fact that they were real people. They had their kookiness and things like that, but they were more or less real, just real everyday guys that were really into that particular ghost phenomenon type of thing. Whereas this version, I feel like almost every of the four main characters, they were all characters.
Yeah,
they weren't real people. They were kooky and they were the over exaggerated New Yorker that knew everything, that type of thing. So I think it would have worked in its own movie, but I couldn't help but kind of compare it to what was successful about the original, and in this case, I definitely would go with the original cast, the core cast. I bonded with them more, even though I was a lot younger when I first saw it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the characters, sometimes they work, and sometimes, like you said, they're very, hyperbole and all that. Like, especially like Kate McKinnon. I feel like Kate McKinnon is definitely the dividing line as to whether you either fall on the side of you love that character and you liked it, or you didn't and it didn't work for you. Me personally, it teetered the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna teeter towards. I did like her. There was a good amount of scenes where she did play the moment, and it was she hit a lot of things. But then there was also times where when you have a character like that, when they're always pedal to the floor trying to get the laugh, sometimes it seems like they're trying too much.
And it's kind of like the same problem I had with Adam Levine in the last movie we reviewed.
Mike and Dave.
Mike and Dave. I can never get that name correct. Mike and Dave. It's I like her in spurts. She's on Saturday Night Live. But in a long movie, like you, I went back and forth. I'm like, that was a little much, or okay, that was perfect. I think she had really good scenes. She had probably some of the best lines, I would say. Yeah. But then she would just be really kooky and dance in the background. It was just like, stop.
Yeah, trying a little too hard. But she was definitely the most exaggerated character out of the four. Then I would say probably Leslie Jones is a little bit where, like, she worked on some things, but then again, it goes to that she also a couple of times had her foot to the floor, and a lot of times it just, when it feels like you're trying, that's not what makes a good comic movie.
And it's not that she's they're all really great actors in this movie. Actresses in this movie. I thought they all did really good jobs. There were just a few scenes that for me did it.
I think part of that is also could be the direction where, like, you stay a couple beats too longer on a certain joke, then it doesn't really flow right. And I mean, I love Paul Feig. I love The Heat. I love Spy that he did last year with Melissa McCarthy. I just think that when it came to this, a couple of times he fumbled a little bit. But that is more negative. But we are talking like this, but it's hard to explain, but it is a good movie. It makes you laugh.
Well, let's briefly talk about, I'd say, the two main characters.
Yeah, we're definitely Melissa McCarthy and
Kristen Wiig.
Kristen Wiig, yeah.
I mean, they've been in things before. The wedding.
Yeah, Bridesmaids.
The wedding movie Bridesmaids. And they work really well together. They always do. I thought they were good. Again, it's kind of a theme, and we were talking about it earlier. Melissa McCarthy, kind of one of those things where she's really good most of the time, and I enjoy her in almost everything she does. But then she kind of goes a little bit too much, and it's the same problem. I you know who I think about, and he was regarded as a great person. Saturday Night Live.
Chris Farley.
Chris Farley.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely.
Chris Farley. I had the same problem with him. Great, one of my favorite actors growing up, but even as a kid, I would be like, okay.
Yeah, it's a little much. And I feel like a lot of that, like, Melissa McCarthy does work really well with Paul Feig. She has in the past. I also think that sometimes Paul Feig falls into that trap where, let's see how we can make it funny for Melissa McCarthy to fall down in this movie. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times that happens, and in this movie it happens too. And for me, it's just like, okay, come on, let's try to find humor in some other aspects of this world, because I think they did do a good job of building a solid foundation for sequels and franchise potential.
Yeah, I think there could be at least one more on this of this series. It's a good movie. The character, it sounds like we're bashing it. I thought, all in all, the actors were the right actresses for the movie. I wouldn't put anyone else really in it. I found it, Chris Hemsworth, it worked. It was good. I was just wondering the whole time why he took the job, because it was just such a weird role.
Yeah, definitely. It was good to see him, let loose a little bit, drop that whole Thor personality, and always being the serious leading man.
It's not a spoiler, but he is the
secretary.
He's the secretary in the film.
Yeah.
And he has some, he's funny. He's funny.
And the other comedy things he pops up in, he's usually pretty good. Like, he was good in Vacation and all that kind of stuff too. But I think he was good, but it wasn't enough to change the perception of what was already going on. Because even him, at some points,
too much.
Yeah. They play into the fact that he's good looking, but not a lot going on upstairs, and then sometimes it's just like, okay, we get it. Let's move on.
I felt this movie wasn't afraid of offending things. Like, there were some things that could be considered maybe a little sexist in that movie. We won't go into it. and I felt like, yeah, I just think
Yeah, definitely a couple times they tackled the whole perception of the internet outrage that's been going on for this movie, and they poke fun at that, and I think those jokes really do work, and they show people how stupid they all are.
Yeah. I thought that was enjoyable. Yeah,
but yeah, I think they do.
They were self-aware.
Exactly,
and
very self-aware.
And it's kind of funny because they had to be self-aware before it actually came out.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the previews, so they kind of knew the backlash that was going to happen, and it's understandable with the cult classic. There's going to be people who love the film and
destroying my childhood.
Exactly. So. But yeah, well, let's just kind of go into your overall thought of it. What your score is?
Overall, I think it's a good summer comedy. It's not what we were promised as like the next big hit, but I don't think it was destined to fail. Basically, just because of the public perception and everything. I do think they set up a great job world building, and I would definitely come back to see a sequel, something else in this world. And the jokes hit enough for me to put it on the fresh scale. So I think out of 5, I'm probably going to give it a 2.7. 2.7 out of 5.
I don't understand. I don't understand your system, but that's your system. I don't understand how you're going to give the same score that you did to, or similar score as Warcraft, which was an all in a bad movie. This is not a bad movie.
See, I consider them like Warcraft and Ghostbusters to be more like cable movies. Like, if it's on cable, you won't flip the channel, you'll watch it.
So you think this is a cable movie?
I think so. I think you can watch it in the theater, and I mean, if you do, I'd probably suggest watching it in 3D because the effects were very, very well done.
Yeah, good CGI and all that good stuff.
But other than that, if you see it on HBO, you're gonna watch it. It's not
worst
way to spend your time.
See, I think it's a movie that I would recommend you to go see in the movie theaters. There were parts where the whole crowd laughed out loud. We've already discussed what our small problems with it. If I had to kind of briefly summarize it, I thought it was a very strong, not very strong, but I thought it was a strong movie that was very, very funny at moments. I thought the ending was a little much and a little weak. Not weak because it was a little much, but there were just some scenes there that just didn't need to be there, and I felt like
it definitely went from like 0 to 100.
Yeah. It just there was no in between.
Yeah. So what kind of score are you giving it? Obviously more than I will.
Yeah, because I think if you do the math on yours, it's pretty much a failing grade.
No. Your score?
My score. I'm gonna give it a 3.5.
Oh, wow.
Oh, excuse me. Somewhere between a 3 and 3.5. I'm kind of undecided where I want to fall on that. I definitely don't want to give it anything below a 50%, and this is out of a 5 score. I thought it was more enjoyable than the small bad things that we didn't like about it. I actually am kind of excited for a new one.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely leaves you not hating the idea of a sequel.
Yeah.
Just to clear things up, though, my score, if it's over a 2.5, it means for me personally that I do enjoy the movie and I would watch it again. For me, 2.5 is like the dividing line where it's either good if it's above or it's not good if it's below. So,
So you liked it?
Yeah.
You just wouldn't recommend it to go see the movie?
I wouldn't be like, dude, let's go this
No.
Ghostbusters.
It's not a dude, let's go to the movies and watch this movie again. But it's
like, oh, we're not doing anything. Yeah, let's go see Ghostbusters.
No. Okay, well, you kind of get an idea. We more or less liked it.
Yeah. So
are we doing a film feud?
Are we? Yeah, we can do a film feud if you want. What do you want to fight about? Because let's fight.
Well, let's just say, who do you think was the better cast?
The better cast?
Yeah.
I mean, this is gonna show my bias. I don't really like the original Ghostbusters. I don't hate it, but
I'm sorry, Bill.
This is the whole thing where like it definitely missed me. It's one of those where if you're not in the middle of the whole zeitgeist when it came out, that it's not gonna hit you. So I think if on TBS they were showing the original Ghostbusters, and on HBO they were showing this Ghostbusters, I'd probably watch this one again.
Okay, well, I'm glad you picked that because I couldn't disagree with you more. I mean, like I touched upon, I liked the semi-normality. Is that a word? Normality? Look it up. Of the original cast, they weren't. I mean, they were characters by virtue of being in a movie, but they weren't over the top. It was more about the storyline. There were parts. You never thought they were like superhero, and I think like superhero or did super things like out of the ordinary. They're just basically guys with plasma guns that weren't scared of ghosts. Whereas when you watch this movie, there's a couple scenes where the characters, it's about them and doing some crazy stuff that I thought was a little weird. So that's not so much what cast did better, but as far as the characters, I definitely liked the original cast more, and I think most people are going to agree with that.
Yeah, I mean,
because most people like the movie. You're a weird one that doesn't like the movie.
But I'm not saying it's a terrible movie or something. But I'm also saying I think something that gets overlooked a little bit is that the first Ghostbusters, it feels a lot like the director didn't have a lot of control over his actors because they were such big comedy names. I feel like a lot of times they go they're on their
well, I think Kristen Wiig Kristen Wiig and McCarthy are probably where they were like Harold Ramis and Bill Murray were at their careers when they came. They were still young at that time. They weren't really the huge stars, I feel. I don't know. I was young. Maybe I was wrong. But I don't feel like they were the huge stars. They had hit movies just like the two women had. I don't know. I don't think they were the huge unruly stars that they could have been.
But I think on this one, Paul Feig has a better reign on them a little bit. I think the reason jokes go too long is because of Paul Feig, not because of the actors. I feel like in the original Ghostbusters, a lot of it is like, it's like Bill Murray doing his Bill Murray thing. And like, I think sometimes each character tries to go on their own riffs a little bit, and it kind of, muddles it up a little bit. But I mean, that's also me coming from someone who was born 10 years after it came out. So I'm looking at all this retroactively and from what I know about the characters. So
let's end it there. As always, we're interested in what you think of the movie. That's what matters. We're just two guys that like movies.
Yeah, most of the time.
At the end of the day. Well, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at The Great Rambino.
And you can find me at Marcus F. Nartatez at both Twitter. That's your Twitter account, and that's my Twitter account.
Yep. Definitely follow the channel, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Film Feud Guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Like you said, please share. And that's going to do it for this review. And in case we don't see it, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Thanks, guys.